The cold wind blew mercilessly through the streets of San Francisco, piercing through Tom Wilson's worn-out clothes as he huddled in his usual spot near the Tesla headquarters. The city, so vibrant and full of life for some, was merely an indifferent backdrop for him. At 73 years old, he had grown accustomed to the loneliness and invisibility that life on the streets imposed. The skyscrapers around him gleamed imposingly, reflecting the frenzy of progress, but to Tom, it all seemed to exist in a world separate from his. As executives and engineers hurried by, immersed in their screens and urgent conversations, he knew that few noticed him. He was used to the averted gazes, the silent discomfort of those who saw his aging figure holding a piece of cardboard that read, "Veteran. Any help is appreciated." The winter morning chill made his joints ache more than usual. He adjusted his old coat, which barely did its job, and rubbed his hands together to generate some heat. The asphalt beneath him was hard, unyielding, and the city around him continued its fast pace, indifferent. There was a time when Tom never imagined he'd end up like this. He had served in the army with honor, spent decades working as a mechanic, and built a life alongside his beloved Martha, a woman with an easy laugh and eyes full of tenderness. They had a home, plans, and the certainty that they would always be together. But fate has cruel ways of testing a man's resilience. When Martha was diagnosed with cancer, they spent every cent they had on treatments that offered hope. Tom held her hand at every appointment, struggled to keep the bills paid, but the battle was unequal. Medical costs drained everything they had. First, they lost the house, then the car, and finally Martha. That was when loneliness became his only constant companion. Without a job, without family, and without resources, Tom was swallowed by the abyss of poverty. Each passing day, he became just another lost face among the many who lived in the shadows of big cities, where progress shone for some and completely ignored others. He learned how to survive, to find the best places to shelter from the rain, to eat only what was necessary to keep going. But he never stopped feeling Martha's absence. On cold nights like that one, he would wonder if she was still watching him from somewhere, trying to send him some hope. The day started like any other. Tom woke up before sunrise, his body stiff from the lack of a decent mattress. He packed his few belongings into the shopping cart he pushed through the streets, a collection of objects that, to anyone else, were trash, but for him held value. A patched blanket, a few water bottles, a piece of rubber he kept without a clear purpose. As he finished his morning routine, an unusual sound broke the city's usual noise. A black luxury car turned the corner awkwardly, coughing smoke from the hood before stopping abruptly. The vehicle seemed out of place, as if its elegance didn't match the worn sidewalk and the harsh life there. Curious, Tom looked up and watched the driver step out, irritated. The man was frantically tapping on his phone, shaking his head as if he couldn't believe what was happening. His suit was slightly rumpled, and he was muttering something to himself. Tom recognized him immediately. Even without television or the internet, he still heard bits of news, saw headlines in discarded newspapers he found in trash bins. That man was Elon Musk. There was something intriguing about seeing him there, without the posture of a confident visionary, but rather of someone utterly frustrated by a situation as mundane as a broken car. Tom noticed Musk looking at his phone with a furrowed brow, no signal. He sighed heavily and looked around, as if searching for a solution that simply didn't exist. "Today, of all days, Musk muttered, running his fingers through his hair. Tom observed quietly for a few moments. He had learned not to get involved, to keep his distance, not to expect anything from anyone.
But there was something different about that scene.
Maybe it was the irony of it. A man among the richest in the world, powerless in the face of a faulty engine. Or maybe it was just his mechanical instinct, still strong despite the years of inactivity. He stood up slowly, feeling his joints protest the movement, and walked over to where Musk was, speaking in a low, almost hesitant voice. "Excuse me, sir." The billionaire turned around, surprised. There was that familiar moment of hesitation, the quick look that sized Tom up, the way anyone would react when approached by a homeless person. Tom had seen that expression countless times. But, to his surprise, Musk didn't back away. "I couldn't help but notice you're having car trouble," Tom continued. "I was a mechanic in the army. I can take a look if you'd like." Elon Musk blinked, as if weighing the offer. For an instant, Tom saw something different in his eyes. Not mistrust, but curiosity. "That would be helpful," Musk finally said, putting his phone away. "I have an important meeting, and there's no signal here." Tom nodded, adjusting the sleeve of his worn coat before opening the car's hood. The smell of oil and hot metal was familiar, bringing back memories of his days fixing engines in Vietnam. Even at his age, his fingers still knew what to do. While he worked, Elon Musk watched in silence. What did this man see? Just a homeless person, or something more? Tom didn't know, but he felt that this moment, this seemingly ordinary morning, might change something in his life. What he never imagined was just how big this change would be. Tom Wilson leaned over the car's engine, feeling the heat rising from the metal block, mixing with the familiar smell of burnt oil and leaking coolant. His body might have aged, his hands trembling with arthritis, but his mind still worked like that of a true mechanic. With a practiced eye, he quickly identified the problem: a leak in the cooling system. Probably a small crack in one of the hoses had worsened, preventing the coolant from circulating properly. Without a fix, the engine would overheat in just a few minutes, rendering the car unusable. "Your cooling system is compromised, sir," Tom murmured, gently touching the hose. "It'll need a full repair, but I think I can do a temporary fix to get you where you need to go." Elon Musk, who until then appeared impatient, crossed his arms, observing Tom with a mix of curiosity and surprise. "You can fix it now?" Tom looked over at his shopping cart, where he kept his few belongings. He rummaged through some items and found a sturdy piece of rubber he had saved weeks before, some discarded fragment someone else had thrown away, but which he knew could be useful someday. "It'll hold for a bit, but not for long," Tom explained, using a piece of rope and his own drinking water to clean and improvise a repair. Musk remained silent, watching every movement. He was used to engineers, specialists, high-level people. But this older man in worn clothes, living on the streets, showed the same precision as a trained technician. After about 20 minutes, Tom wiped his hands on a dirty rag and stepped back. "Try it now." Musk got into the car and turned the key. The engine purred smoothly, with no immediate signs of overheating. It worked. Elon Musk raised an eyebrow, impressed. He looked at the dashboard, tested the accelerator, checked the sensors. "Well, that was unexpected," he said, looking at Tom with a slight smile. "How much do I owe you?" Tom shook his head. "Nothing, sir. Just glad to help." The billionaire stared at him for a moment, as though trying to figure him out. "Really? You fixed my car without asking for anything in return?" "I learned a long time ago that if you can help someone, you should," Tom replied, his gaze steady. "My father always said kindness doesn't need a price tag." Musk nodded slowly. There was something rare about this man, an unshakable dignity. He took a closer look at Tom's worn clothes, the shopping cart full of items of no apparent value, and the marks of time etched into his face. This man's life had certainly not been easy. "What's your name?" "Tom Wilson, sir." "Tom, what's your story?" Tom hesitated. Usually people didn't ask. They preferred to look away, to ignore his existence. But there was something in the way Musk asked, as if he really wanted to hear. And so, Tom told him. He spoke about his time in Vietnam, about how he learned mechanics in the army. He talked about the years he spent in a workshop, about his wife Martha, and about how her cancer treatment bills took her away, along with everything they owned. He didn't speak with self-pity. There was no lament, just facts. Elon Musk listened in silence, without interruption. When Tom finished, there was a pause. Finally, Musk took a deep breath and pulled a card from his pocket. "Tom, I'm going to be late for a meeting, but I want you to do something for me. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., go to this address and ask for Sarah in HR." Tom took the card, hesitant. "I don't want charity, sir." "I'm not offering charity. I'm offering an opportunity. You earned it with your skills and your character." Tom looked at the card for a moment. His heart beat faster. After a moment, he nodded. "All right, sir. I'll go." That night, Tom could hardly sleep. The business card in his hands burned, as if it were something unreal. Was it a real chance? Or just words from a rich man who would soon forget the encounter? He thought of Martha. If she were there, she would tell him to believe. And so, when the sun rose, Tom made his decision. He would go. Tom Wilson held the business card with a mix of disbelief and hesitation. The crisp lettering, Tesla's shining logo in the corner, and the name Sarah, Human Resources, seemed to belong to another universe, a world he hadn't been part of for years. Sitting by his usual building entrance, he felt the weight of his decision. What if it was a prank? What if, upon arriving there, no one knew anything? It wouldn't be the first time promises were made, but never kept. Life on the streets had taught him that hope could be crueler than the cold night wind. He ran his calloused fingers over the paper, recalling Elon Musk's words. It's not charity. It's an opportunity. Martha always said some doors only open once. Would he have the courage to walk through this one? Sleep came only in fragments, interrupted by the biting wind and the fear that, come morning, the card in his hand would be nothing more than a tired mind's delusion. When the sun began to light the streets of San Francisco, Tom forced himself to stand. He couldn't show up at Tesla looking like this. He needed to at least try to seem worthy of the opportunity. He gathered his coins and went to a public restroom. He washed his face, scrubbed his hands, combed what little white hair he had left. His clothes were the least dirty he owned, but still worn. The cracked mirror reflected a man with sunken eyes, a gray beard left unshaven, and an old scar on his chin, a souvenir from Vietnam. It didn't matter. He wasn't a beggar. He was Tom Wilson, veteran, mechanic, a man of principle. With slow steps, gripping the business card firmly in his pocket, he headed to Tesla's headquarters. When Tom arrived at the massive glass and steel building, he felt out of place. The reflection on the automatic door showed a man who clearly didn't belong. Employees passed him in suits, carrying pristine laptops and the latest smartphones. The floor glistened, as though stepping on it required a certain level of success. He took a deep breath and approached the reception desk. Good morning. I was asked to see a woman named Sarah, from HR. The receptionist, a young woman with warm brown skin and observant eyes, gave him an unreadable expression. Your name? He cleared his throat. Tom Wilson. She typed something into the computer, checking the records. Tom expected this to be the moment they'd say it was all a mistake. But then she looked up and smiled.
Ah, yes.
You're registered. One moment, please. Tom felt a lump in his throat. It was real. In just a few minutes, a side door opened, and a brown-haired woman with her hair in a bun appeared. Wearing a blue blazer and a kind expression, she reached out her hand. Mr. Wilson. So glad you could come. Mr. Musk told me about you yesterday. Please follow me. Tom hesitated for an instant, then shook her hand. Her grip was firm, professional, and respectful, something he hadn't felt in a long time. And so he followed her. Sarah led him down a glass corridor revealing a panoramic view of the city. For Tom, it was like traversing a foreign territory. They entered a spacious conference room, where a folder of documents lay on the table. Mr. Musk was very impressed with your skills, Sarah began, sitting across from him. We'd like to offer you an opportunity. Tom's heart began to race. An opportunity? What do you mean? Sarah opened the folder and showed him the papers. We're developing a new division focused on classic vehicles and adapting modern technology for conventional mechanics. Mr. Musk believes your experience could be invaluable. Tom blinked, trying to process her words. You're saying you want to hire me?
Exactly.
As a senior maintenance consultant, Tom almost laughed, thinking it couldn't be real. I'm 73 years old. Who hires someone like me? Sarah smiled. Someone who understands that experience and character are more important than age. Tom looked at the documents, his vision momentarily blurring. How many years had it been since anyone believed in him? Then he noticed another detail. This includes medical benefits? Yes, sir. Your benefits began immediately. All those years of pain, the cold nights, the lack of care, it all came crashing down on him at once. It meant he could finally address his health issues. But more than that, it meant that for the first time in a long time, he was seen as a person of value. He cleared his throat, fighting back emotion. "I accept." Sarah smiled. "Welcome to Tesla, Mr. Wilson." That afternoon, Tom was taken to a small studio apartment, arranged by the company as part of their relocation program. When he walked into the place, he stopped for a moment. There was a roof. There were walls. There was a real bed. His eyes scanned the space until they fell upon an envelope on the table. With trembling hands, he opened it and found a note. "Tom, your kindness and skill helped me yesterday when you had nothing. Consider this a small repayment." Below was a check, enough to cover all of Martha's medical debts. He fell to his knees, clutching the paper in his fingers. For years, he had believed life had taken everything from him. Yet now, for the first time, it felt like it was giving something back. And for the first time in 5 years, Tom cried. Not from sadness, but from gratitude. Tom Wilson woke up early, before the alarm even went off. The weak light of dawn filled his small apartment, illuminating a space that until a few hours ago felt like it belonged to another reality. Still in bed, he took a moment to take it all in. The real mattress beneath him, the ceiling above him, the silence undisturbed by the biting wind or the distant city noise. He turned to the side and saw the envelope on the table. The check was still there. Part of him feared it was all a dream, that he'd soon wake up back on the streets, holding his old piece of cardboard. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. With effort, he got up and walked to the bathroom mirror. The man staring back at him still looked like him, but at the same time he didn't. Now clean-shaven, his face showed a version of himself he hadn't seen in years. He ran his fingers across his skin, as if testing whether it was really real. Today was his first day at Tesla. He took a deep breath, feeling something he hadn't felt since working alongside Martha. Wearing the clean uniform provided by the company, Tom walked through the city with a different demeanor. No longer with his shoulders hunched under the weight of years on the street, but with the posture of someone who knew where he was going. On his way to Tesla, he passed the spot where he used to sit with his cardboard sign. The empty space seemed like a distant memory from a life that now felt in the past. But he didn't look at it with shame. He looked at it with respect. That patch of sidewalk had been his home. The streets had been his teacher, his survival, his suffering. But now he was ready to move on. Upon arriving at Tesla, he again felt the impact of the gleaming building, but this time, he did not hesitate to enter. He was not an intruder. He belonged there. The hallways buzzed with activity, with employees hurrying back and forth, discussing projects, prototypes, and technological innovations. Tom was greeted by Sarah from HR, who guided him to a large workshop at the back of the building. "This is where the engineering magic happens," she said, smiling. As they walked in, Tom caught his breath. There were cars in various stages of disassembly, parts laid out on workbenches, and computers hooked up to cutting-edge systems. It was a genuine automotive laboratory. Then a familiar voice echoed in the space.
Tom.
"Good to see you here." He turned and saw Elon Musk approaching, this time without the urgency of their last meeting. Now, he wasn't a man frustrated by a broken car, but a leader pleased to see a valuable piece fitting into his team. "Mr. Musk," Tom said, feeling slightly awkward, shaking the billionaire's hand. "Ready to get started?" Tom looked around, inhaling the familiar scent of oil, rubber, and metal. "I've always been ready." In the weeks that followed, Tom Wilson proved his worth many times over. His mechanical knowledge, considered outdated by some, turned out to be vital to Tesla's new initiative. While the engineers designed revolutionary electric vehicles, few had the practical insight of someone who'd spent a lifetime repairing engines and understanding the challenges faced by regular mechanics. "You design like engineers, but you need to think like mechanics," he said, pointing to a new model. "If a technician has to take this apart to replace a part, it'll take 3 times as long as it should." The engineers exchanged glances, realizing Tom was right. Over time, he was consulted to review models before they were finalized. His practical approach helped create vehicles more accessible to standard mechanics, ensuring that repairs would be more efficient and affordable. Before long, Tom Wilson was no longer just an unexpected hire. He became a key member of the team. But for Tom, the biggest change wasn't just having a job again. It was regaining something he thought was lost forever, a sense of humanity. He didn't forget where he came from. Every day, on his way to work, he'd pass by the spot where he used to sleep and leave small granola bars for those who still lived on the street. When people asked him why he did that, he simply smiled and said, "Because sometimes a small gesture can change someone's life. I should know." And he did. His story didn't end there. It just changed shape. He had been a man who lost everything. But through a small act of kindness, he found a new beginning. And now, he made a point of reminding the world that no one is beyond redemption. What did you think of Elon Musk's action in helping a homeless person he had never met before? Leave your opinion in the comments.